In 1692, in a small Puritan town in Massachusetts, a man was tortured to death. Not for murder, not for theft, not even for a crime that anyone could prove. He died because he refused to speak. Heavy stones were placed on his chest, one by one, until the weight crushed the life out of him. And as the crowd watched in silence, his final words stunned everyone around him. More weight. This is the chilling story of Giles Corey, and one of the darkest moments of the Salem Witch Trials. In the late 1600s, the small Puritan settlement of Salem Village was a place ruled by strict religious beliefs and constant fear. The people who lived there believed strongly in the power of God, but they also believed that the devil was always close by, waiting to corrupt their community. Life was harsh and unforgiving. Illness, crop failures, and sudden deaths were common. And when something unexplained happened, many believed it could only be the work of witches. In the winter of 1692, strange events began happening in Salem. Several young girls started having violent fits. They screamed, twisted their bodies in pain, and claimed that invisible spirits were attacking them. Soon, they began accusing members of the town of practicing witchcraft. Fear spread quickly. Neighbors began to suspect neighbors. Friends turned against friends. Accusations filled the town, and before long, dozens of people were arrested and brought before the court. Among those caught in this growing panic was a farmer named Giles Corey. By the time of the trials, Corey was already around 80 years old. He had lived a long life in Salem and was known as a stubborn, independent man. He had worked his land for years and had built a life with his wife, Martha Corey. Martha was a respected member of the church, but even that did not protect her. When the accusations of witchcraft began spreading through the town, Martha Corey was suddenly accused of being a witch. She was arrested and placed on trial. At first, Giles Corey defended his wife, but soon, the fear and hysteria surrounding the trials began to grow even stronger. Before long, the accusations turned toward Corey himself. He was arrested and brought before the court. The judges asked him a simple question. Was he guilty of witchcraft, or was he innocent? But Corey refused to answer. Under the law at the time, every accused person had to enter a plea before a trial could begin. If someone refused to plead guilty or not guilty, the court could not move forward with the trial. Corey understood something important about the law. If he were convicted of witchcraft, the government could seize his land and property, leaving his family with nothing. But if he never entered a plea, the court could not legally take his property. So Corey made a dangerous and defiant decision. He stayed silent. The judges grew frustrated. They demanded an answer, but Corey refused to speak. In response, the authorities decided to force him to enter a plea using an ancient and brutal punishment known as pressing. Corey was taken outside and laid on the ground. A wooden board was placed across his chest. Then heavy stones were placed on top of the board. At first, only a few stones were used. The court believed that the pain would quickly force Corey to speak, but he did not. When the judges again demanded a plea, Corey remained silent. More stones were added to the pile. The crushing weight pressed down harder on his chest, slowly forcing the air from his lungs. Each breath became more difficult than the last. Still, he refused to speak. For 2 long days, the punishment continued. Each time the authorities asked for a plea, Corey remained silent. More stones were added again and again. The crowd watched as the weight on his chest grew heavier and heavier. The pain must have been unbearable. His ribs began to crack under the pressure, and breathing became almost impossible. Yet Corey refused to give the court the one thing they wanted. Finally, as the crushing weight pressed down on him and the sheriff once again demanded that he confess, Giles Corey used the last of his strength to speak. Instead of begging for mercy, he looked at his tormentors and said only 2 words. More weight. Shortly after those final words, his body finally gave out. Giles Corey died beneath the stones, still refusing to plead. His death shocked many people in Salem, but the hysteria of the witch trials continued. In total, 20 innocent people would eventually be executed during the Salem Witch Trials. But Giles Corey himself was never officially convicted of witchcraft. Because he never entered a plea, the court could not seize his property. His land was passed down to his family, just as he had intended. Ebony in death, his silence had protected them. Today, the story of Giles Corey is remembered as one of the most haunting moments in American history. It is a reminder of how fear and hysteria can destroy justice, and how easily innocent people can suffer when panic takes control of a community. The Salem Witch Trials eventually ended later that same year, but the damage had already been done. Lives were lost, families were torn apart, and the town of Salem was left with a dark legacy that would echo through history. If you enjoy dark historical stories like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and share it with someone who loves mysterious history. And tell us in the comments what you think. Do you believe something like the Salem Witch Trials could ever happen again in the modern world? Because sometimes the most terrifying stories in history are not about monsters or witches, they are about people.